Of course, the PS.
He's from another era. He's from a different era.
Yeah, let him finish.
The current minister is actually an accounting officer of the ministry. So there's a difference between you and the current.
Okay, so with the old regime.
Yeah, with the old regime, he was okay. That indeed
okay.
No, because his job was policy. But the current setup, according to this new constitution, is the minister is actually an accounting officer of the ministry.
Yes, he could be an accounting officer, but there is important division here. Even in the board of National Cereals and Produce Board, there is a subcommittee that does the procurement.
I think what I would like Mheshimiwa Kerua to argue is that I want you to argue like a street Kenyan, the ones in the streets, the ones who have never been at school, because these are the most clever Kenyans we are going to meet. Yeah. And they will ask you, how does anyone get a government agency to distribute fake fertilizer? And the street Kenyan will tell you, this must have been a government project, not an individual project. The individual doesn't have that capacity of getting a government agency. Okay, just be simplistic. So that's why I want to support your argument that Mithika is a fungi. Yeah. Okay, it's a fungi because Mithika alone is not a government.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
You know, we're talking the same language. I'm saying, you see, what I'm trying to do is to lay squarely that this is a systemic problem. There is more than one player. And I spend a lot of time listening to people before even I make my pronouncements. Remember when the MP for Aldai, Marianne Keitany, raised an issue about this fake fertilizer, she was called names by 3 important members of Kenya Kwanza. One is the majority leader, the other one is the women rep of Uongozi, and the other one is the MP for Kapseret, Sudi. And when you hear the 3 of them talking the same language, it tells you this is bigger than just Mithika Linturi. So for us to lynch him today, we are almost forestalling as an issue. And if the president was to sack him this afternoon, that prop will collapse. And upon collapse of that prop, it means some other people who are going to be unearthed in this scheme of things are going to go scot-free. Or rather, we go through the entire prop, and even the Agriculture Committee, we hear. And there are certain critical people who must be questioned. Somebody from Treasury will give us more information. Somebody from the Office of the President will give us more information about this particular issue. So that at the end of the day, that information shall be made by those clever Kenyans in the street to know who was responsible. Otherwise, Mithika will go down, and many other Mithikas will be punished at the altar of convenience.
You know, Dibal, we need to, there's something we don't want to risk here on this table, and we must be very consistent in what we are saying. Accountability and responsibility begins with one owning up. So whether there are 101 people, whether they are shadow people, whether there are some fellows propped up somewhere else, is neither here nor there. The fact is, the minister or the cabinet secretary for agriculture has come out in public telling us there's no problem. Now I was going to think that, in fact that's why I wanted to put in before Mheshimiwa Kerua spoke. I was out in Western last week looking for seed to plant for maize. I couldn't get hybrid from Kenya Seed. I couldn't get Pana. The most that I could get is Simba and little others. And that was not, the quantities were also not enough. I was looking for beans to plant. I couldn't get any. I've had to come to Nairobi to buy beans to take back to Western for planting. Now, Barak said earlier, that what are we preparing for? We are preparing for bad harvest. We are preparing for food insecurity. Because if you have a season of planting and the drama you have is lack of confidence in the inputs, you don't know what kind of seeds you are buying, you don't know what quality of fertilizer you are buying, and you are a farmer. In the meantime, there are some other messages where even some legislation is coming through that for you to be a farmer, you need to be licensed. I mean, we are just in a bad place, because what we are preparing ourselves for is disillusionment, discouragement, and therefore lack of food security is something we can face. So for me, whether Linturi is being lynched, and I've said he's being lynched because they have procedural issues, we have an opportunity for him to go through an 11-person committee, and that is okay. So that's also still a procedure. That committee may as well come back with a recommendation that is free. That committee may as well come up and say, let's go for X and so on. Some of the people that we are mentioning on this table, as far as we know, have no official roles. And even if you wanted to look for them, you will not find them. It's like even if you
There's
say
no traceability at all.
They have no
shadowy.
public office. There's nowhere you can track them. And even if you bring in Treasury, but Treasury will tell you, as soon as we passed money to the ministry, we wait for the ministry to give us the response.
But haven't we heard also that if he goes down with many? Because him is declared that if he will name names.
He can do that, but he will name names.
Then he should go down and name those names. Because this
is a good opportunity for him.
It's an opportunity for him to tell us who is really doing all this. You see.
But can you mention some names? Can't trip off your tongue easily, even before the committee as well. You can be very editorial with the names as well.
You know,
if it's a tangled web that is touching also some live wires somewhere.
But also we shouldn't have predicted this was about to happen. You see, the moment your government is supposed to supply fertilizer, then you read the corruption there. And what is corruption going to produce? Exactly what has happened. Because what this government should have done was very simple. Remove taxes from fertilizer and allow the private sector to do its job. Because the private sector works best. But you see, you want to hold on it because you need to make money from it. So once you do that, because this was a money-making scheme, why do you think they are going to pack sand? It's simply because they want money. I think I've seen some calculations like they made 1.9 billion from sand, from that sand. So this was expected. It had to happen. And the same thing with the housing also. It's expected. It will also happen. Because if you want to give people houses, you know what you do. Remove all the taxes from input to housing and allow the private sector to provide the houses. So that you just become a facilitator. But because you need to control, you need the money, so the head result will be fake fertilizer, will be all what is happening. Fake houses also, okay? Built very poorly, that can contain anything. So I think the reason why I want to agree about the leasing is because I've said, I think many times, that individuals in Kenya don't do corruption. The government does corruption. And the corruption stops when the government decides it does not want corruption. Because if the government doesn't want corruption today, the corruption will end today. That is the only power. Anyone here, go and pack that sand fertilizer. You will go to jail tomorrow. But when the government packs fertilizer with the government printed bags, then government uses the government agency to distribute the fertilizer. Then government distributes the fertilizer. Government is God on earth. We have God in heaven, and we have another God here, and that God here is a government.
So who is the government?
That's the way I want to agree with him today, because it's true. If we wanted to arrest the people who supplied stones, it doesn't take a probe, it doesn't take a lynching of a cabinet secretary. We will do it as government.
So who is government? We must find an entry point to government. And the entry point we have found is Mithika Linturi, because that is government. He sits in the highest council of government, the one which, for example, sat yesterday and decided that children will go back to school next week.
As we will say, irregardless.
Irregardless of whether the floods are going to be there or not. When Mithika Linturi, the minister, not a chap in the street, the one Professor Gitile is talking about, but the minister, the cabinet minister who for the time being is in charge of this docket where these things have been happening, when he says, I will name names, what is he saying? That is not a statement to be taken lightly.
He did.
He says
Yeah?
he knows what
He's
was
sending a message to somebody that hata wewe nitakutaja because ninajua na wewe pia unajua. That is what this minister is saying. And who are these people he's telling that? There must be people in power. There must be people who can save him. He's basically telling
Save me.
somebody somewhere that save me.
All right,
Because you have the ability to save me. But if you don't save me, then I will spill the beans.
I'll go with the
Yeah?
heads.
I'll go with all of us, like Samson. And therefore, what is happening is good. If it's the only way we are going to get to the heart of this matter and know who else is involved, so be it.
All right, so with the expediency of this matter, the way it's being, or getting traction also, should question maybe other corruption cases that we've had and people still twiddling their thumbs in the offices. We had the edible oil scandal, and minister
19 billion.
has been, yes, billions have been lost. Only one
And
figure
then
that
it
we
was
know
personal.
has been sent home. That is the CEO of Kenya National Trading Corporation, KNTC. But the president also promised that, or he had given a mandate, or not really the mandate, but he had given the work to EACC to investigate this particular issue. But it's gone silent. If Linturi is facing the fire right now, should it also Moses Kuria be facing the fire right now regarding the edible oil? What has happened? I mean, it's been so many months. We can try and raise
The
this issue.
edible oil was not just the money, but it was also an effect for human consumption. Just for KEBS to turn around a few months later and decide it is now fate. And the question you ask these people, we give responsibility of us. Because the responsibility, I agree, should come with accountability.
Yeah, because- yeah.
When do you use our money to buy as poison? If you must steal 19 billion, why can't you just steal 19 billion? But don't at the same time use it
And it's poisonous.
to buy as poison, which you are now giving us.
But we need also to ask questions. Why would KEBS turn around
Exactly.
after you've given a certification that this is fake?
Yeah.
Is there any person who sometimes is pushed to the corner to make?
I'm twisting.
How do we also trust this particular entity?
Arm twisting.
The arm twisting here at the end of the day. So it seems corruption is biting back, and we cannot even trust our entities because maybe the apparatus of government also is shoehorning them to turn some of these certifications they've given or pronouncements they've made at the end of the day. So
you need KEBS to withdraw the certificate for you to charge the MD of NCPB to carry them the cross for everybody. In other words, it's a choreographed, managed, it's choreographed to get a few people in on the dock and then let everybody else off. Otherwise, if you refuse, even you in the dock. We've seen issues of corruption. People are tied on the issue of conspiracy. The conspiracy to defraud. So that if you refuse, you say, okay, you say, then you bring in everybody. So basically what we've done is that, for once I am in agreement with the professor here, that if we do not have a holistic approach to corruption, we don't solve it. So what we are dealing with, you see, if you really want to get hold of this fake fertilizer, it starts from the importation, the certification, and then the stocking, and then the paying for it, and then the supply. So you just get the chain and you bang in people. But the head rolls from the top. You can say once Mythical Linturi's head has rolled from a political accountability, then there are other people who must be accountable down there.
Yeah, Dibab, I run the risk of being said I'm an apologist for Mythical Linturi.
Well,
because they seem to be talking the same language as I stated earlier on, that we need to roll out the entire probe so that we do not just finish by sacking Mythical Linturi the way some people are proposing that the president should have sacked him. Because when you sack him, then there's no need to probe further.
No, you can continue.
The probe continues.
You can, because it's accountability process. There's a need to continue.
His suffering is
that
being
we
sacked.
don't even repeat.
Others are being charged.
Well, I think I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today.
Yes, today.
Because
You slept
I'm
for a
talking
few
the
hours.
same language as you are talking. But you seem to be dismissing my thinking that this probe can only be interesting and can also have traction if Mithika Linturi is still holding that particular office. The moment you sack him, you have resolved a big problem for some lynchers like you people here. Because I can see you have the mentality of wanting the entire probe to take place. At the same time, you have this lynching mentality Kenyans have, that once so-and-so goes down, half the problem has been solved.
Remember,
when
we were under government.
Why don't you allow me to finish?
Okay, yes. let him finish.
Yeah. Why don't you allow me to finish? If there is any valid reason that you have, then you do it after I finish.
Well, finish.
What I'm saying, no, but you see, Barak, don't pretend that you know everything. Don't pretend that you know everything.
Don't lose it. You're always under control.
Let him finish. Let him
At
finish.
times, I'm very meek.
Please be meek.
But in my meekness, some people mistake it.
You have the floor.
I have the floor, but you see, I don't like this kind of interruption.
Please.
This is a lyncher. He's interested in just the lynching Mithika Linturi, but for me, I'm interested in the entire probe. I know slightly more than I'm able to say now because I'll be accused of casting aspersions on many individuals. But what I know is that this thing is systemic. It's the entire government that was involved, and even in their parliamentary group meeting, this issue was raised. But somebody with high authority said this thing is going to die. So what we are keen on is who else was involved in this. And that's why those questions Martin Olo was asking, we want to know the people of Treasury. When you are giving this money, did you give money if there was money given by Treasury? And in that committee, they must have sat and agreed. This is the person to be given and these are the reasons we are giving because they have a clean bill of health. But now they sat as a committee. Now the committee seems to be blaming Ton Mithika. So we want to get to the bottom of this particular problem and we bring it out.
Right.
Because corruption is not about today. I'm worried about corruption that is likely to take place tomorrow. But what has taken place today, that is already water under the bridge.
So this will just be a band-aid solution. Even if we oust Linturi, we still have the systemic problem.
We are wasting time because Mithika Linturi is just one person. Another person may be appointed tomorrow afternoon, perhaps him. Or somebody else.
He's on to a point. Because yes, there's somebody who's pushing for the oust of Linturi.
Yeah.
From the upper reaches of government.
I don't know.
And that will be a job seeker who is interested in Mithika's job. I'm interested in the truth, not Mithika's job. Mithika's job is a small thing.
You know, the done thing in all civilized environments is that when you are being investigated, you step aside.
I was about to say that.
You don't sit in a position where you continue exercising power, including exercising power in a manner that is likely to cover up critical leads in that investigation. For that, people usually step aside voluntarily, especially when they have clear conscience. You step aside, you allow the process to go on. Yeah, and if you have any other information, you supply that information. You don't say things when you are a minister to the effect that I am going to name names. This is something very critical. I'm going to name names. That is something very weighty, something very heavy, and something that dictates that Mithika Linturi should step aside and name names. And if he cannot step aside to name names, he must be caused to step aside so that he can name the names of whoever else is involved. But when he sits there, sits pretty, that is a good opportunity to exercise authority and to cover up.
But the Ministry of Trade as well, yes? Somebody sitting pretty as well.
Yes, exactly.
Right? What is good for the goose? Yeah, you should also be happening for the gun as well.
And that is when Mithika Linturi, if he is indeed involved and these ministries are there, that is when he's going to name the names and say that there's also the Ministry of Trade, there's also the Treasury, there's also such and such authority. We must find an entry point into government.
And so for us just give you some history, remind you some history. We had a president who was trying to put us in the path to integrity and the path to good governance as required by Article 10 D. And there was an allegation of corruption during that government of Mwai Kibaki. Some people, Anglo-Leasing, I don't know, Kreito Moronge, Mwirari, and so on. We didn't have this beautiful constitution then, but all those people stepped aside. Okay? Now, actually what is happening in this Mbunge is an attempted cover-up. Because because if you ask me, I'm saying the attempted cover-up because it has not happened. During these impeachments I've seen for governors, you talk to those MCAs, they tell you which they do the committee of the full house. Then you ask them why. Because it's very easy to compromise 11 people.
Indeed.
Okay, so that's why they want the committee of the full.
Indeed.
In other ones, the Kenyans are completely lost faith in a genuine, proper process whose final result is to protect the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya come last year in everything that we are doing.
You know, Dibal, what I wanted to say is that, and we want to be honest with ourselves. Is corruption an issue for this current government? Does it really loathe it? Does it really care that corruption is something that is not good? And is it really exercising any policy or any take on what corruption is? So that if they, and you know that nowhere in their manifesto and nowhere in their public statements have they ever committed themselves to dealing with corruption. And so you can trace almost everything that there is an element of conflict of interest. Now, conflict of interest is the very beginning of corruption. The moment government begins to engage in business, it has knowledge because some parts of it is sitting in cabinet. They know exactly what is going to be needed, what's going to be ordered, and they also proceed and make those decisions. There is conflict of interest. So in edible oil, conflict of interest. In fertilizer, conflict of interest. In affordable housing, conflict of interest. The president himself has said, we will do it, you like it or not. So that when you start looking at even the ingredients that are going into housing, the people that are actually contractors, the cement and the steel and whatever, what is the proximity between ownership of this and access to contracts and access to affordable housing? Those are the things we should be questioning. What we are dealing with in Linturi is a good side show. But even on this show, what we are saying is corruption is so endemic and systemic. And on this, we are in agreement with you, Mheshimiwa Arap Kirwa, that it is systemic, it is endemic. And therefore, when you see Linturi being lynched, it is symptomatic. And that's why we are saying lynching sometimes has to happen on behalf of, somebody has to bear the brand.
I mean, but we need to follow also the debate on the floor of the House, because we have the majority leader questioning why the committee has not been given a sporting chance to conclude this entire process. And you're talking about also the committee is being compromised here. We can come back to you, Honorable Kiru, and ask how germane or how kosher and genuine are these committees at the end of the day? Are they uncompromisable? Because I can remember also when we had the issue of Galana Kulalu as well, there were questions around from the Agriculture Committee, of which also Linturi himself was part of the Agriculture Committee. And it happened that at some point they were airlifted to Mombasa, the Agriculture Committee, and the whole tone of Galana Kulalu changed, right, to be a viable project. What really happened to that particular project? Are also our committees within Parliament, you know, the weakest link of the National Assembly, beginning also with the Parliamentary Accounting Committee as well, the peak, and the rest, even with the Transport Committees, right, with the Ruaraka project as well. We know the saga that we really went around it. There was a huge machinery of corruption around that area, right also from media down to, you know, the ministries themselves.
Yeah, Diba, let me just give a bit of background, and I run the risk of people who think that I elevate myself to another position for personal reasons. This committee system that we have today is a product of my committee of 1993. After the multi-party elections, we went to America for 1 month and a few other countries like UK to understudy the issues of the House of Commons and of course the Congress, and of course the Senate and their procedures. Hitherto, we did not have this kind of committees. We had only about 4 committees which were actually meant to be doing post-mortem issues of audit. That was Public Accounts Committee, Public Investment Committee, and of course House Business Committee of that particular time. And of course there were ad hoc committees like now the 11-man committee. So this House committee system, the genesis of it was to create a proactive committee that will be able to inform policy, so that when the minister is trying to do certain things within the ministry, the relevant committee, whether it's Agriculture Committee or Foreign Relations Committee, will work with the minister to prepare whether it's piece of legislation or any other piece of motion to ensure that Parliament and the executive are talking the same language. Now, increasingly, these committees have almost invited themselves to be like the committees for doing audit. In my opinion, the relevant committee to deal with this issue of Mithika is not necessarily the Agriculture Committee. It is a select committee now because it has been selected to deal with that specific issue. And therefore, their findings at the end of the day, if they get all the information relevant to the issue of fake fertilizer, is something that we'll rely upon. This therefore means, as Kenyans, we need really to redefine the mandate of these committees, and we fine-tune the process so that any time a committee has an issue, it is able to distill each and every issue and come up with effective recommendations to the House and to the country at large. That is the way I look at it. And therefore, the minister really should not be probed by the Agriculture Committee. The Agriculture Committee ought to have dealt with that issue before even the importation, as a way of being a proactive committee before certain action is taken. But you see now, even if they were to come with those recommendations, there will still be an audit, which will again go back to the relevant committee dealing with the audit of the Ministry of Agriculture. So there will be, there is a bit of wastage of time. But because people, the way I'm saying, they like just lynching an individual and they move away, they forget about it. Because Mithika resigning today or stepping aside, there is no guarantee he will be given fairness. Because this society is not fair, including my colleagues around the table. They are not fair. They are interested in lynching Mithika. No. You lynch Mithika, you leave a big issue.
We have agreed with you, Mheshimiwa, that you are right. This thing is systemic.
Systemic, yes, I agree with you.
We have said, let somebody's head roll. So even if it's Mithika, so that's the only thing
we are not agreeing. After we've gotten the information.
That's the only thing we're not agreeing. But otherwise, we are with you.
It's only just 10 days.
He's been on that seat.
If it doesn't roll,
then we know if it doesn't roll, either the committee might have been compromised. That's a question that I need to tell you.
And it will be compromised. Let's agree on this.
The committee can easily be compromised because today, unlike the days of Moi, people had so many things about Moi. But if you claimed mileage without traveling to your constituency, you would be taken to jail. And some members of parliament ran out of this country because they made false claims. If you ask the question, and it was discovered you're asking that question because there is money motive, you would be taken to jail. So we were more careful during our time, and therefore to be compromised or anybody to give you money, that we were more careful. Possibly that's why we are poor. But today's committees, from the vetting of an individual, whether you want to be a PS or to be a CS or to be a member of any panel that is supposed to be vetted by parliament, you need to have money.
Indeed.
You are lucky if you get a position without money.
If you analyze what I was just raising, if you analyze what Parliament is doing, because when you talk about procedural propriety, they are intimately familiar with that process. Why will they be shouting must go, and then we have committee?
That's how you get to the committee.
business.
That's how you get to the committee. And some of the people,
That's what I'm saying. That's what, no, don't confuse the issues. Because now don't confuse the issues. Because yes, we know if it goes to the committee, the likelihood of survival is there.
It's higher, in fact.
It is higher.
Yes,
and that's why everyone is in solidarity that he must go. You know, from both sides of a divide.
No, we are casting aspersions
we're just
on the integrity of the committee. Yeah, I think the committee should be allowed to do its business. And after the committee has done its business, it will still bring a report to the House.
But Barak, isn't that what I'm asking? First of all, because the National Assembly is the first place, port of call, where they should be intimately familiar with that propriety and the process. So they should not be shouting on the floor.
No. Part of their business is to shout on the floor.
Yes. There's something I don't understand.
And to talk as if they are addressing a rally.
Okay, let's Barak finish.
No,
we come to you. Let him finish.
So you see, what they did, as they shouted, provided that they do not descend to the level that we saw some time back, someone pouring water on the deputy speaker and things of that kind. It is part of that democratic practice and processes. And this committee has got the opportunity to investigate things a lot more in detail, to be able to curate the issues and to get to the bottom of the matter. And I personally give the committee all the benefit of belief that they are going to do the right thing. And one way or the other, they bring a finding. That finding will then be tabled before the House. And the House will have an opportunity to debate, to even shout further, and at the end of it, to accept or reject the report. So it's not just about the committee.
Yes, and that said,
we need to settle the issue then.
Yeah, that said, let's also agree that is a procedure, that even when the House has passed the motion, they need to subject it to a special committee. Then that committee does deeper investigation. So the committee system works that way. That said, I also want to say that while here I've gotten a text that has told me who the supplier of the fertilizer is, and I'm not going to reveal my sources. So at the end of the day,
but you can help us.
It stands where Mheshimiwa is, that Mithika Linturi is suffering on behalf of others. And he might die. Let me tell you, he might die in the process in terms of his career, but the real culprits are sitting fairly pretty.
We should be told who
the way you know that is true. The way you know that is true is if you listened to that Muhindi in the Parliament. There's a man who told the Parliament, the K chemicals or something. He told the Parliament he was going to State House with a written letter for him to accept responsibility for the fake fertilizer. Who has the power to get somebody in there? I mean,
in where?
In State House. No, in State House or somewhere where he was being told to take responsibility. You see, and then and then yesterday in this parliamentary debate, I heard that they're actually compensating farmers. How do you compensate the farmers when you have already arrested the people? Are you not funding crime? Because you see, once you have arrested the people for a criminal act, they carry that responsibility. First you convict them, then you go after them to recover the money. But you can't use the taxpayers' money to fund the crime when your job, primary job, is actually to protect the property of the public. So I absolutely agree with Wanakirua that this thing is bigger than Mithika Linturi.
You see,
and that Mithika is just a fungi.
All right.
You see, this thing may be bigger than Mithika Linturi, and we must get to the heart of the matter. there are many people at State House. When we talk about State House, we think about His Excellency, the President, but we also think about some other notables. We have got the Controller of State House, for example, and by extension, we have got even such offices as the Head of Public Service, yeah, who is also the Chief of Staff. We have got many notable individuals there. We must never forget that State House is our house, the house of the state, that we, the people, are the ones who decide who goes to State House. And they don't go to State House to do the kinds of things that we are seeing around fertilizers, around seed, and around other irresponsible acts of omission and commission. So we need to get to the heart of the matter. And if we have got to instrumentally impeach people, then those people must be instrumentally impeached, starting with the nearest. You kick the ball which is next to you. You don't kick a ball that is far.
We can't kick a shadow.
We cannot kick a shadow. If we have got Mithika Linturi, we must impeach him if he's liable. And after we have finished with him, we must go on to the next person and to the next and to the next, as laid out in the Constitution. And it doesn't matter which office it is. I don't know why we become afraid of calling things by their correct names. We have got government, and we are saying the government must decide. Who is the government? The government is headed by a head of state, head of government.
I want to tell you who is the government. The government is the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not less than 14, and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. That's the government.
So if they are the ones behind
the speaker is not mentioned there.
These people.
No, the speaker is the leadership
of the
other side.
The other side.
Even that one I can tell you also.
No, but
And
the government is three-legged.
The government is what we have.
Yeah, we have
it's three-legged. It is three-legged.
Actually, it is three-legged, but this constitution defined the government for you. It tells you the government is the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not less than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries.
That
so
is
if it now go to parliament,
Okay, let's hear from the
That
Constitution.
is called the executive.
yes, executive.
That is not government.
Authoritatively, I can tell you.
But he's saying that is the government he had in mind.
But I'm telling you, that is the
So, which
executive.
is
That's
fine.
one arm of government.
Yeah?
One arm of
He's
government.
clarifying.
He has clarified
No,
and
you are from the books. I mean, from the books, you are smart. Yeah, he is saying it from the streets.
Exactly.
Now the street lingo. That's how you need to understand it.
In this country,
Take a short break.
of ours, we need to curb that distinction. That when you talk about the state and State House are different from the government and Harambee House. And when you talk about the government, it is the executive, the judiciary,
And the
and
legislation.
the legislature. That is now the government. And so when we go to elections to renew government, we renew it in that respect. The only arm that doesn't get renewed on that respect is
The judiciary doesn't.
But back to where we are. When Barack was talking about the State House,
Could we take a short break? I think the music is up. Right. Sorry for interrupting
No, fine.
your
We
thoughts
are
as
here.
well.
We are here. We're not going
Yeah.
anywhere.
So we take a short break. At least I can add you some more tea. Yeah, and I can see you've not even taken a bite of sausage that we've given there, Baraka.